This video presents work orders set up in Dynaway EAM Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. To access work orders setup, you have two options: extension management or assisted setup in Microsoft Business Central. In this video, we will do it through assisted setup. In assisted setup, look for the headline, "Get started with Dynaway EAM." Setup work orders is placed right underneath. Select Setup Work Orders. Welcome to Dynaway EAM Work Orders Setup. At this point, you have the choice to apply a predefined package that already contains some data, or manually configure the software using your company's specific data. For the purpose of this video, we will select the Demo Predefined package. Additionally, you can decide whether to enable the use of counters and measurements. Once again, for the purpose of this video, we will keep these settings enabled. Click on Next to continue with the setup process. Wait for the data to import. As stated in the instruction, the next step concerns number series for work orders, round plans, and maintenance tasks. You can set up a default number of series or create your own. The number series feature encompasses a configuration setting that establishes the specific numbering scheme employed to generate distinct identifiers for various entities, including work orders, work order rounds, or maintenance tasks. Let's select Set up Default Num Series and press Yes. Here is an example of how number series might look like for work orders, work order rounds, and maintenance tasks. The next step is to set parameters for work order plans and work orders. In Set Work Order Plans Parameters, you can select the default unit of measure for resources, for example, hours. You can also choose how many days in advance work orders should be planned. In the next point, you decide if you want to have mandatory remarks on work orders, and if failure reasons on work orders are mandatory. You can choose between never, corrective maintenance only, or always. The next element in work order setup is resources, meaning maintenance employees or machines, as stated in the instruction inside the setup. After selecting Setup Resources, you are redirected to the Resources view. It is empty as we don't have any entries yet. To add a new entry, select New in the toolbar. This will redirect you to the resource card. In the resource card, you can insert information about your resources, such as number, name, type, base unit of measure, search name, picture, etc. For the resources with similar characteristics, you can create a resource group. We can, for example, add a resource group called Electricians. It's important to save it as a maintenance group. You can also choose a color for each group for better visualization. As the last point, you need to mark using the toggle button that is a maintenance resource. The resource card also has a dedicated place for invoicing information and personal data. After you fill out the information, go back and close the view. After setting up resources, it's time for work types. You can add new work types to the table and choose a unit of measure and color for each type. Work types refer to different job types on a resource line. For example, electric on height, inspection, etc. Let's add one more new entry. For example, the job type would be cleaning, and the unit of measure would be hour. The color for this work type would be set as purple. Now we set up our work types. To continue, close the card and select Next. The subsequent step in the work order setup involves configuring work order priorities. A work order priority defines the importance of the work order or round order relative to other work orders or round orders, for example, high, medium, or low. To set work order priorities, we need to start with setting up priority thresholds, meaning the minimum and maximum number of days within which a work order should be completed based on its priority level. Even though we have selected a demo package with predefined data, there is no data available for this setting. You need to insert new entries yourself. When you have created the thresholds required for your report setup, the next step is to add threshold setup to your work order priorities. Open the work order priority setup. Now you can see the list of different levels of priorities, such as low, normal, high, critical. To apply data from the predefined package, press OK and answer yes when asked if you want to apply the data. Select Setup Priorities again and go to Threshold Setup. Now you can edit the list and connect the work order priorities with priority thresholds. For example, the threshold for the low priority work order will be between 2 and 4 days. The color of the alert will be green. In the same way we set up values for the work orders of normal, high, and critical priorities. You can set up a default priority, meaning a standard priority level, that will be assigned automatically to newly created work orders unless otherwise specified. Moving forward in the work order setup process, the next step involves configuring work order categories. Work order categories help in organizing and grouping work orders based on functional areas or departments. They refer to different categories such as service, repair, inspection, cleaning, etc. The combination of work order category and work type allows for efficient classification and management of maintenance tasks within the Dynaway EAM. You can edit or delete the entries from the work order category list. Only after applying the data from the predefined package, you are able to add new records. Again, you can set up default categories that will be automatically assigned to the work order unless specified otherwise. You can also assign a specific color to each category. It will be useful for visualization if you plan to use, for example, Dynaway scheduling board. Let's add a new line for electric work orders. Once you have completed the setup of work order categories, you can proceed to configure counter categories. Counters are used for condition-based maintenance, and they help to plan when future work orders should be created. In this step, you need to set up counter categories. For example, running hours, kilometers, miles. In the Trend Days field, enter the number of days to be used when expected values are calculated in EAM. Expected values are used to show the trend for future counter registrations based on actual counter registrations. In other words, the number of trend days determines the number of days from the past based on which data will be collected to predict the timing of the next work order. In the maximum daily change field, enter the maximum number allowed per counter per day. This is useful if you want to prevent faulty registrations on a counter. For example, if you enter the number 8, you can register a maximum of 8 hours or another unit per day. This can be done by one registration, or you can make several registrations, for example, 4 registrations of 2 hours on the same day. If you don't want to set a limit for daily registrations, enter 0 in this field. Then you can register as many hours or another unit as you like. Just like in the previous steps, if you want to add a new line, you must first apply the predefined data beforehand. In the default type column, you can specify the type of the counter, which can be either continuous or relative. Continuous counter categories track values that continuously increase or decrease over time, while relative counter categories measure values relative to a specific reference point. Setup of measurements unit of measures is the last step of the work order setup. This step refers to the measurement used to quantify and express the magnitude or quantity of a particular attribute or property. For example, ampere, Celsius, liter, Pascal, etc. If you agree with the units in the predefined package, apply the data. Enter the setup again to create a new line. Let's add V for volts. Close the card and select Next. Well done. You have successfully completed the work order setup in Dynaway EAM for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. To conclude the setup process, simply choose the Finish button.